How much better can the Florida State offense get with Brock Glenn behind center before the end of the year?
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith. Thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles football with me. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. How much better can Florida State's offense get? That is going to be the theme of this show. From quarterback, O-line, tight end, running back, receiver, combining together, by the way, because this is a team sport, to produce a product that somebody actually wants to watch. Brock Glenn had his moments against Clemson. Obviously, there were some lowlights with the drops, the penalties. That's the biggest issue right now. And then just overall the chemistry. But each week, you're going to have more and more chemistry because he's the one getting the reps with the number ones. Thank the Lord for that, by the way. But at the same time, you still have to prove it against a pretty formidable schedule down the stretch. Duke's got a good defense coordinator. That's your next game. It's not this Friday, but next. Then you go to Miami. So those are the next two. Those aren't going to be easy for Brock, but hey, this is Florida State football. This is the Power Four, and there are no freebies. So the next couple of weeks probably won't be the easiest for him, but at least they get this week off that they can do whatever they want in practice to key in on several things that I'll talk about. And in the next segment, I'll go in more depth on my 5 keys on what they have to do. But to get there, unfortunately, we got to go through the baseline. You need to hear this, the hardcore numbers, where Florida State's at, and kind of go over what's next for the Seminoles after that. All right. These statistics you cannot make up. This is where Florida State ranks in the categories that I think are very important and often dictate games. I leave turnovers out because obviously Florida State, they're not good in the turnover area. That is no news flash. It's one of the areas I'm going to talk about later this week. So I'm going to leave it out here today. But just down the road, these are the numbers and then where they rank nationally out of 134 teams. Passing for the Noles, 215.5 per game. That's 83rd in the nation. Sadly, that's gone up here recently. Rushing, 58th, 58 yards per game. This is the stat in particular out of all the stats I'm going to mention today that is the most mind-blowing. In the history of Division I football, the team that is arguably the worst in all of Division I historically is Kent State. They are 134, so they're actually below Florida State, but here's the caveat. They are 0.4 yards below. Kent State, for those you don't know, it's in Ohio. It is in the Mid-American Conference. They stink. Almost always stink. This is really, really bad. Florida State's offensive line is going to be a major focus here in about 5-10 minutes when I talk about it, and the run game will be a part of it. But again, they are 133rd in the nation out of 134 in rushing. Pathetic. Total offense, 273.5. They're 125th in the nation. Scoring, 14.8, 128th in the nation. Sacks, they've given up 14. That's 103rd in the nation. This is also where it gets kind of comical with the run game. He comes back in. Explosive plays, I talk about it all the time. Well, 20-yard runs or more, plays of 20 or more runs. Florida State is stuck at 2. I don't remember the last time they had a 20-yard run. They are 123rd in the nation. They have 2 for the year. That's just ridiculous. Passes that are 20 or more yards. Florida State's actually not terrible there. I mean, this is one of their better stats, sadly. They have 18 of them. Not too bad. It's 53rd in the nation. Red zone touchdowns. The percentage is 58.3, 7 out of 12 times. That's 86th. With the inefficiency of the offensive line, that's not surprising where the area gets tight. Tackles for loss allowed. The Noles have allowed, this is insane, 37. That is 113th in the nation. Third downs, 24 of 83, 28.9%, 126th in the United States of America. All right. First downs, 14.7 per game, 125th. So obviously, out of those numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them are in the 100s. 8. And I didn't even count turnover. I don't even want to know their turnover number. I literally went out of my way not to look it up because they don't create enough of them. And quite frankly, the offense throws it to the wrong team too much. So as an additional stat, I was curious on this because this is subjective. When speaking of the O-line, Pro Football Focus has Florida State 78th in the nation in pass pro, meaning like just how good the protection is overall. They do individuals, and then they combine it, and they come up with the number. Fair enough. That's not a whole lot different than the sacks, but I do want to note they're 78th in sacks is 103rd. Part of the problem with sacks was DJ just isn't mobile. It's been denoted on this show by myself. Numerous people have commented on it, and please continue to talk about that because Brock's a lot more mobile. And a lot of people in the live shows have commented on it constantly, and rightfully so. This is an area where Florida State is going to see more good plays happen. Give you an example. Brock Glenn on that, I think it's 4th and 9. Somebody correct me on YouTube on one of the comments if I'm wrong with this, but I believe it was 4th and 9. He had a guy behind him, but that's DJ. It's a sack. Game over right there as far as that drive. He beats the guy around the corner, just athleticism. His grit got him there because he got hit way before 9 yards, and he made it. Strong, athletic, determined. Those things never go out of style. In a lot of ways, while the arm strength and seeing him throw some passes is important, the grit that Brock Glenn showed on that particular plays, but the game was mostly out of hand, but you got to compete to the end, and Florida State made it at least somewhat close. They went out there and they kept competing, and he kind of gave them a little jump start with that. Those kind of plays will help that sack number and the offense overall improve. Now, before I go on and go through my 5 keys, a couple of things to think about. Now that they have a week with Brock was the guy they went through practice, they have film. So do your opponents, by the way. And then you get a bye week. This is as good as it's going to get for Norvell and his staff. You get 1 week, so there's very limited film with Brock in the offense, and you get another week to prepare for you're going to get 2 weeks to prepare for the Blue Devils. This is perfect. They've got a well-coached unit, the one that was pretty good last year, but they lost a couple of key guys. I don't think they're dominant. I'm not going to go into their stats. I haven't even looked them up. But you should be able to, quote-unquote, scheme up more stuff for Duke than you would any other opponent left on the slate just because you have more time. And it's perfect, again, because you've got a redshirt freshman quarterback. Is he truly ready to be the quarterback? Probably not, but he's at least close. He's got the moxie you're looking for. He's not afraid to take shots. He's got the arm. He's got the size. He's an athlete. You have a chance to scheme up some things for the Duke game. I have no idea what the point spread will be on that game, but right now, just looking at it, I don't think Duke's great on offense. I mean, they only scored 21 points against North Carolina. North Carolina's defense stinks. So you have a chance to be in a slugfest at worst. Maybe you can win a game like 23-21 at Duke. It's in the ballpark of happening. I know this next statement is not fair, but it's just true. The Duke game will be won or lost with Florida State's offensive play calling. I'm going to say that again. The Duke game will be won or lost with offensive play calling. And here's the subpoint. How you prepare right now this week, and Norvell and his staff will harp on this, is critical. They have to get guys to buy into like 4 or 5 key plays in the run. Like the run game's got to go up, and I'm going to go extensively into that in a moment. But they have to get a baseline. So those shot plays that Brock likes to take are more likely to draw blood. Too many of them fell to the ground because, quite frankly, everybody knew Florida State wasn't going to be able to just sit and pass protect, read 4 seconds, and then he releases the foot because pass protection is not good enough. Clemson's got dudes. We don't know how much he can really throw to the middle of the field consistently, although he had some that were nice. You have to be able to hit those shot plays. They got to get better. And to do that, you got to run play action, which means you got to run the football. Said it all year, and as I opened up with this show, 58 yards a game is not going to get it. And I guarantee you, Duke's defense will be disciplined. They will not have run gap fit problems, etc. So while I'm talking about on this show, can they get better? That's the theme of this show. And we went over the numbers. That run game, it's not Brock. I know it's not exciting stuff. He's not going to elevate the Florida State offense unless the run game gets marketably better. Why? Because 58 yards is a joke. He, or Joe Montana in his prime is not going to do much with 58 yards rushing. Play action is worthless. And he is a play action quarterback who has mobility as well. The RPO game and all that opens up. You have to be able to run the ball come hell, come high water. I know Andre Otto is in the line. He's not ready, etc. This week also, hopefully they get a little healthier, and I'll talk about that next. When we come back, we're going to discuss Florida State, the 5 keys that I see for this offense to get better and do so pretty quickly if they do this correctly. Need a little luck, but there's a chance. That's next at Locked On Seminoles. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even when those aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free on linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. There are different ways to look at how Florida State can improve. Obviously, the biggest things, they got to be able to run the ball and all that. So that's why the first thing I put on my list, I put five things. Okay, 5 things. This is the generic answer, and there's not going to be a single person following Florida State that's not going to agree with this. Even teams or people that hate Florida State are going to be like, how could you not get better? I just put O-line dash much better. Not like a little improvement. Like they should be absolutely way better than they are. They have zero chemistry. They rarely move anybody off the ball. And I mean rarely. And they're massive and experienced. And they don't have a bread and butter play, which I'll come to in a few moments. How can they be this bad? 2 points. Number one, I don't understand how the chemistry is not working when you have this much experience. I'll never have an explanation for that, in my opinion. I don't think anybody can. This team had, I believe, 210 starts from its offensive line unit that was working together through summer and fall camp and into the early season. And they didn't get any better. That's unexplainable to me. I know some guys are banged up. I know some guys have been in and out of the lineup. Totally get it. But let me give you an example of why I still call BS on this. If you're Florida State, number one, this is a program that was 13-0 at one point last year. You had some O-line struggles last year and you figured it out. They had 22 yards rushing against Clemson last year and won. They had either 22 or 23 this year against Clemson and got smacked. They are not timely. They are not clutch. And they have plays that are just so disastrous. It sucks the life out of the offense. I mean, this guy's going scot-free. And then the play, again, Andre's not ready, but he got ran over by TJ. I mean, just literally ran over. So injuries do cause problems because he wouldn't be in the lineup. Totally get it. But they have to find a way. Give you an example of some other teams. At one point, because I started studying ahead on some of these teams that they're going to play, like Miami's offensive line hasn't been as good as I thought it would be running the ball. It's pretty good, but teams know what they're going to do. Their offensive run game is really generic, and they just try to beat you up. Teams are stacking against it. It's hard. And then, like Notre Dame's, it's not exactly a whole lot different than Miami's, and they've had not one, not two, not three, but 4 different guys go out of the lineup in their offense on the line. 4. 3 have been long-term, and they're still running the ball. So why can't Florida State? 4 for part of the season, 3 right now. And Notre Dame can still run the ball. Why can't Florida State? They don't have as many injuries as Notre Dame. Like Notre Dame's offensive line's been decimated, and they're still way better at running the ball. That is a lack of coaching. For those you don't know, and I've said this a couple times since Saturday and Sunday, there will be a Tuesday live show at 6 p.m., the Sound Off podcast. If you want to voice your opinion, you want to come into the chat and talk bad about the Florida State coaches, this is your chance. This is what it is. Air your grievances. I will do the same. 6 p.m. Tuesday night, all hands on deck. Let it rip. I'm going to do the same. But that'll be the first thing I talk about. The O-line coaching has been garbage. They still have to find a way. Again, Duke's going to come with a good run game plan to stuff you. They'll be sound. They have some holdovers from last year's defense that are good. They have good culture. Elko did a good job there. Now, obviously, he's at A&M, and they hire a guy that, I don't know how great he is as a head coach, but he knows defense. Diaz will do a good job. If Florida State's O-line's not ready with 2 weeks to prepare for Duke, it is time to just openly on every podcast, I'll mention who should get fired. Every single one. I am that guy. I do not care. With that being stated, they got to find a way to come up with some chemistry. And again, I don't understand how you don't do that. You had 210 starts. Even the guys that weren't starting that were in that group, they worked together, or they should be, to give each other ideas. This is what I would do. This is what you would do. This is what coach means. They have to get better at that. Number two, this is a short part of this. Drops. Why are there so many drops? I mean, like, think about how many guys that are veteran in the wide receiver group. Kentron. You got Williamson, you got Douglas. These, Malik. Obviously, Kyle Morlock has been the most disappointing player on the offense, in my opinion. He's been removed, and I think it's pretty obvious. Landon Thomas is now ready to at least be the receiver. He's not a good blocker necessarily, but he's your guy. Amari's a really talented player too. They're getting better there. They just can't have these drops. They're dropping like somewhere around 5% of the time they go drop back. There is a drop. It's ridiculous. Maybe even higher, 7 or 8%, just overall. In the passes that aren't complete, it's something like 15, 20%. Like, it's insane. That just has to go away. There's no other excuse for it. And while I can jump on Dugans, you're a power 4 wide receiver. Let's start with that. It is on you to catch the football. Since 8th, 9th grade, you've been expected to catch football. Why would that stop when you're at Florida State? This is a player problem far more than Dugans. I'm sorry. Catching the football is simplistic. What you do with it after, we can get into running routes, how you set up some of the things like Kentron, the horrific bomb effort that he had where he faded way too early, and the commentator was right. And when he explained it, he's a 5th-year senior. Now, if you want to get on Dugans for that, jump on it. But the drops overall, that's a major problem. Third, this is the hardest one, and this is the one I don't feel good talking about, but it's paramount. Remember when I mentioned a few minutes ago, the number one reason they will win or lose the game against Duke coming up will be play calling. Here's where it gets really touchy. You're down to 2 scholarship quarterbacks. One's a redshirt freshman, and one is a true freshman. They're not going to admit this, but it is 100% true, and Duke and every school they play against will know this. Brock's mobile, but if he gets hurt, you have a true freshman in the game. Do you think they have any desire to put their entire game plan in Luke Kromenhoek's hands at this point? And on top of it, if Luke's in the game, they don't have a scholarship quarterback to back him up. Uh-oh. The problem is it's the rock in the hard place. They absolutely, unequivocally must run Brock constantly to maximize their offense. However, they must absolutely, unequivocally do everything they can not to get him touched because of their depth chart. Those two things don't go well together. How they do this, I don't know, but they have to be more RPO heavy with respect for the quarterback going out of his way to run. They're not going to do it. And they also need to get chunk plays from the quarterback running, and they're not going to do it. I don't see how that's going to work. This offense has always been best under Norvell, wherever he's been, when the quarterback takes off. He had the year, I think it was 19, with White, the quarterback at Memphis, threw 4,000 yards. He was the exception to the rule. The guy couldn't run for anything. He was a plotter. Every other guy he's had that's been successful could move. That is a trend that is not going to change with Glenn. But again, Luke's behind him. And then after that, you got Trevor, who's a walk-on, but he doesn't read defense as well. That's the knock on him coming out of high school. I don't think he's anywhere near ready. If you want to use him in circumstances, go ahead. But they got to figure out a way to use Glenn's legs without getting him hit. And that's not realistic. This is tackle football. Because their offensive line, well, I need to see it improve, and so is everybody else. Realistically, how much are they going to do? Are they even going to be able to get to 100 yards a game over the last 6? I'd say that's at best 50-50 because they're still banged up and they don't have any chemistry. 75 might be more realistic. That's still terrible, but they got to get something going. So if it's not the quarterback, how are you going to do it? I guess they could just go 5 wide and throw it on every down and just throw a bunch of short passes and screens and bombs just like fades, but it's not very effective. And it's pretty boring to watch your passing offense throw for 50%, 55% to try to save your quarterback from taking shots. All right. Number 4, as I've noted several times, they just got to get healthy. Again, Andre is in the lineup. He's not ready. That's an example. They've got to get healthy. I don't know who's winning battles in practice. We don't get to see all the true tackle to the ground, full on blocking, ones versus twos versus twos, ones versus ones, all that stuff. They got to get healthy up front, and they got to gain some confidence. And that also probably goes just across the offense. They are so bad with this stuff. It's not even funny in terms of the injuries, like just impacted. They don't have any mojo for much of the time with the offensive line. That's where it starts. But I wonder if some of the guys at tight end is more like banged up. I don't know. They're not going to talk about it. They're not going to admit injuries. They're just not. They're going to lie. It is what it is. So they need to get healthy this week. And then 5, this is something that last year it was like the polar opposite. Florida State's run game was really good. They had you on a string. They'd pull both guards. The next play, they would run like a jet sweep. And then they would run off tackle. And then they would do some kind of guard tackle trap play. They ran everything pretty consistently towards the end, like the Florida game when they really got it going. Trey had 3 touchdowns in that game, like the game where he ran into the end zone backwards to kind of seal the ball game. You saw that game and you're like, okay, this is pretty much who Florida State is. Again, they got most of those guys back and they can't do that stuff. It's bizarre. Same coaches, same players for the most part. There's a few small changes here, but it's bizarre. They have to get at least one just complete bread and butter play. Complete bread and butter play to go in to the final stretch of 6 games. Right now, they don't have one. They've tried everything. They coming into the Duke game, there needs to be one play they can go get 3 yards pretty much anytime they want. It sets up RPO. It sets up play action and all that stuff. But right now, it's something that people complain about on this channel quite a bit because they comment or they say it in the live chat. Florida State runs that screen one more time, I'm going to scream, or they say something else I can't repeat. That's their go-to play, screens. That's not good. That needs to be the outlier. They must have a bread and butter running back running play, hopefully between the tackles because that sucks in the safeties and you can go deep. That's something we got to think about. When we come back, I'm going to finish up with some thoughts on the offense and then give some defensive numbers, and then we'll close up the show. That's next on Locked On Seminoles. Have you downloaded the Gametime app yet? Gametime allows you to go to just about any kind of sporting event, no matter what it is. Hockey, basketball, football, baseball, or anything else. I'm a sports nut. I've been fortunate to travel around the country and watch games. I use the app just to kind of see what's going on. MLB playoffs. It's a good way to do it. And again, as I've said on this show, when I'm doing this spot, it's a bucket list thing. There's a lot of great games right now. Go check out an MLB game. You can get it on Gametime. If you want to go to see Florida State play at Duke, the Tri-City area is really cool. I was at a Duke game last year. That's a cool area. Go check it out. There's some pretty cheap tickets. If you want to do it, it's simple. You download the app, you type in the team name, you find an event, click on it, and then you pick a seat, and you can actually see the venue from that seat. They show you a photo. It's cool. So make sure you check it out. So check the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Do I think this is going to be a special offense by the end of the year? No. Do I think it should improve with Brock Glenn? Absolutely. But you still got to do the things around. Offense is more about chemistry than defense. You can have one player just dominate his guy on defense and wreck a team for an individual play. Offense, it's just the opposite. Chemistry. It's going to be a slow roll. That's part of it. But Florida State season's ruined anyway. Get Brock ready for 2025. Florida State's coaches aren't going to look at it this way, but this is my take. Every game from this point forward is a practice for 2025. I know that's horrible. I know nobody wants to hear it, but this team stinks. You need to get younger guys ready, and Brock's in the lineup anyway. Get some of them into the lineup, which they did. Danzy, obviously Cam's been playing from the beginning of the season. He's a special talent, just needs some running room. And then you also need some of these receivers to get in. I don't know. Somebody even asked me about this on the YouTube page with a comment, why hasn't Elijah Moore played? And I said, I honestly don't know. My guess is he doesn't know the playbook well. And coaches hate this, but I'm aptly against it. Just because you don't know the entire playbook doesn't mean they can't come out within a series that you're running tempo and run like 5 plays over and over with a check for each one, and just that's all they have to know. There's no reason you can't do something like that. I don't want to hear all this other stuff. Elijah Moore needs to play. Well, Wayne McCoy needs to play. Obviously, Hakeem is getting a lot of playing time now. He's in the lineup and he's done well. They need all these guys to do it. Jaylen Brown needs to improve. He's a redshirt freshman. All these guys need to not only play, they also need to get some results. I think Brock will hit quite a few passes. He's going to be able to exhale, go through this week, hopefully, with some, shall we say, enthusiasm. He doesn't have to play this week. Just work on fundamentals and get the base plays down, as I was talking about in the last part of the show. They should have some confidence going into Duke, believe it or not. Again, they were actually in the Clemson game in the second half. Got to give them some credit. So if they can do those things, they've got a chance. Here's the last parting point I want to make about Florida State's offense. At some point, somebody's got to make a special play. Remember at the beginning of the show, I talked about they've had 2 runs of 20 or more yards this year. I mean, that's just abysmal. And if you're getting hit in the backfield, I get it. But whenever you get that first level blocked, I know it's not very often for Florida State, whoever has the football, so Feely, Keziah, I don't care if it's Singleton, I don't care if it's Cam, they got to make that first guy miss, and they got to make something happen. They need to give some juice to the offense. Same deal on these screens. Ward only knows they run enough of them. They got to make guys miss. Florida State, that's the one thing I'm surprised about this year. They've had a few instances of it, but they haven't made as many guys miss as I thought, and by a long shot. I'm really, really surprised by that. To help Brock, to help the offensive line, the skill players need to take that next step and get it to a point where Florida State, quite honestly, is feared again on the perimeter outside the numbers. Swing pass, maybe Cam makes a guy miss. Throw a pass over the middle, you make the first guy miss on a crossing route, and then Lord only knows Florida State's got enough speed. They can really run. They just got to make that first guy get out of position. And then once they get by him, you can get a lot of chunk plays. And they've done it to a certain degree. But they can take it to another level. And while it's been increasing, like, again, they have a chance to be a top 10 team in terms of explosives once they figure out the offensive line next year in the passing game. They could be a top 10 team in 20-plus yard passing plays next year. Completely believe that. They're, as a matter of fact, right now, as sad as their offense is, they're 53rd, and they have no blocking. Imagine if they have pass protection. They'd be in the top 30 conservatively. You're going to have Hakeem back next year. You're going to have Wayne, Elijah, all these young guys. There's a chance to build on it, so I want to see that happen. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. I truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles football with me. If you haven't already, please take the time to hit that notification bell, hit that like button, and subscribe to the Locked On Seminoles podcast. It is truly appreciated. Now go check out Locked On ACC and Locked On College Football. All those shows are great here on the Locked On Network. We are growing by leaps and bounds. All the upsets this past weekend, Locked On College Football, Spencer McLaughlin had a pretty good show talking about that. There's a lot to get into. There's a lot of things to discuss. Enjoy it. Have fun. Don't miss that opportunity. This is the best month of the year for football, is October into the first day or so of November. The games are great. Enjoy it. So once again, thank you for checking out Locked On Seminoles. I will see you again tomorrow.